Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
And my name's Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go.
All right. So we were talking about what we were going to do this week, and you kind of gave me the choice. It was like, I hadn't seen movies in like weeks in the theater specifically. And just in general, I've been through traveling and family and holiday stuff and sickness and all that stuff, but I'm all better now, and I've been catching up over the last like week and a half. So you gave me the choice between Maestro and Poor Things, both of which you said needed a conversation. So I saw both, and I said we should talk about Poor Things. So because I can't not think about that, whereas Maestro I can like put aside. So that's why I want to talk about it.
I agree. I agree 100%. And I'm glad you're feeling better, and I'm glad that the holidays were past them on some level, and I'm glad things are working out for you. I hope for the best, and I've been thinking a lot about you guys, so
well, thank you.
All good vibes. So yes, when it wasn't necessarily a choice, you were like, well, we could talk about this, I said, well, they both need proper conversations, and we could talk about both, but I don't see how they connect, so why would we do both in one podcast? And there's just too much going on in both films. So Poor Things lit me up. I floated out of the theater. I laughed. I cried. I had a great time. I was perplexed. The imagination of all of the people involved, the performances, it's just one of the best of the year. So I'm glad that we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to couch it in like movies of the year, because like it's all over the place. I mean, I really enjoyed a lot of like popcorny movies and Mission Impossible and even Indiana Jones, for me at least. So when you start to try to like shove it into like, 2023 movies, Indiana Jones, Poor Things, it's just like it just doesn't fit like that. But this is a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, and so we kind of knew what we were getting into going into it. I'm interested to see what people who were like, oh yeah, period piece, The Favorite, Emma Stone nominated for Academy Award, she's working with the same guy. Great, perfect. Let's see what happens. Like somebody just waltzing into a theater and sitting down and watching this movie. Like that's an interesting calculation to make. In fact, the guy next to me sat down with a friend of his, and he's like, hey, have you seen this movie before? And this is when I say this guy was probably 65, maybe 70. Have you seen this movie before? And I was like, no, first time. Yeah, first time seeing it. And he's like, this is my third time. And I was like, okay. And then I assumed that he was coming with someone who he's seen it with the other two times. And then at the end of the movie, she was like, the woman that he was sitting with, the credits came up, and she was like, well, that was a different movie. And so she was not expecting what she got, but she hung in there. So, I mean, good on her. But this is a movie that doesn't pull any punches. It's overt, and it asks a lot of questions, and it puts a lot of things in front of you, and it doesn't allow you to look away really. And but it keeps you engaged. And that's what I love about Yorgos Lanthimos. Like he uses all the tools in the toolbox, and he's able to, whether it's, in this one, obviously it's lens choices, and it's music, like the original music that was composed in this film. By the way, he's never used a composer before. He's only used like either performances within the, like Dogtooth, for example, the little concert that the kids give, and other things.
I was in the shower, and all of a sudden that image of the two females, I was like, oh, that man.
Well, but he definitely has a path, and he's definitely walking down that path. Like this is on that path. Like it's within his wheelhouse. So, but he finds different ways and different avenues to explore down. He kind of goes off into a side road, and then, it kind of comes back. So I think The Favorite in a lot of ways was a side road, but this one is another one. And the other thing I love is that I didn't realize this was an actual book, like came out like in 1993 or something like that.
92. Yeah.
Yeah. By Scottish author Alistair Gray. And
great name.
Yeah, right.
I want to be called Alistair Gray. That's a great name.
You just like have a bunch of sheep like in a stone cottage somewhere in
smoking
Scotland.
A pipe and
sure.
ink on my fingers from all the writing, from the quills, and
you just have like a scotch constantly right next to you. Just
and there's smoke. Even though I'm not smoking, there's smoke lingering in the foreground.
How did they do that? but yeah, so yeah, I mean, I kind of just assumed there was some sort of like his collaboration, like, because his collaborations with the Greek screenwriters that he's worked with before, kind of like moving into quote unquote Hollywood movies or Americanized movies. Maybe I thought he was kind of going back to that, but no, I mean, this is just an adaptation. But at the same time, he's working with Tony McNamara, the guy who wrote The Favorite. And it seems like he kind of pulls different places and different people. But at the same time, he brings in, I think the costume designer and the production designer were new, I think, which is interesting to me because all the things that you see in the movie are sets. Except for there's one like kind of castle thing at the end, close to the end, that we'll get into later. But Lisbon, Portugal, that's a set. Alexandria, that's a set. Like all of this stuff are sets, and it adds to the surrealism of this film. Do you want to talk about like what the movie's about, or like hopefully people already know? I don't know.
What, the narrative of the film?
Well, the movie's about it's a mad scientist surgeon guy in, I don't know, turn of the like late 1800s.
Sure.
Europe, who puts a baby's brain inside of a dead woman and reanimates her, and it brings her to life, and then also allows her to grow up and become a woman. So that's what it's about.
That is.
So and I know like people were like kind of going hard on the Frankenstein's monster thing, but I kind of threw that away pretty early on. Like, I don't think that Yorgos Lanthimos or Emma Stone or a lot of people involved are necessarily interested in that kind of a thing. I think it's more of like if you look at the Willem Dafoe character who created her or whatever, who reanimated her, he's not necessarily like power hungry, I don't think. I think that he is trying to do some sort of, he's trying to use his life situation for good. He's just doing it in a awkward and impossible way that is informed by his upbringing and his dad. So there's a lot of characters in this movie, and they all have complex backgrounds, and they all are worth investigating. I'm not even done with it, Steph, and I just watched the movie Lift with Kevin Hart on Netflix. It's a Netflix weekly movie essentially, and it's a heist movie, but none of the characters are worth investigating, and it's poor writing. I mean, that's what it is. But there's some interesting scenes, maybe but it's just poor writing, like, and that's what it comes down to. I think this movie was very well written, and I think that that along with the sets and the camera shots and the score really kept me engaged. What about you?
I agree 100%. We're going to backtrack. So Robbie Ryan, the cinematographer, he's probably going to be nominated, and it's a beautiful film to look at. It really is. The boat sequences and the sky and all the stuff that he does on the boat is beautiful. Tony McNamara, this could be his first win for adapted screenplay.
He better get nominated.
Yeah. No, he'll get nominated. No, I think the news or the tagline for the Oscars will be Oppenheimer did well as predicted. Flowers did well as predicted. Where did Poor Things come from? Because it's going all the way. It's going director, actress, screenplay, adapted, cinematography, film, editing, supporting actor. Not sure which one at this point. It should be.
Better not be Mark Ruffalo.
Really?
Yeah.
I loved him. I thought it was great.
He's having a lot of fun.
I thought only him, only at that moment, only at that take. And only he could have gotten away with it. And I think he got away with it. He really does. The comic timing and the tone is all in the script. And he just does what he's being told to do on some level. But no, it's going to be Mark Ruffalo. He's been nominated for everything else. Well, so is Willem Dafoe. But
I mean, Willem Dafoe has it. But I expect this out of Willem Dafoe.
Me too.
I expect. I mean, it's like a to me like this pitch is right down the middle for Willem Dafoe, whereas it would be an impossible curveball for most actors. I think
100%.
It seems like he revels in this kind of a role. Just seeing, I didn't even finish The Northman, but just seeing it, like some of the first scenes that he's in The Northman, seeing him in the lighthouse, like he just, he loves those, and he loves working with these, he
reminds me of those guys
of
on the train track with the girl fighting and they curl their mustache.
Yeah.
He reminds me of those guys.
Totally.
Yeah. That's interesting what you said about Mark Ruffalo. We'll get back to that. So backtracking to what you just said really quick. What I find interesting about the scenario with the gentleman who's seen it 3 times, I wish I could be a person who didn't know anything about this filmmaker, these actors, this story, any of it. No trailer, nothing. I just decided to go to the movies one Friday night and what's that? Okay, well, I don't know what that is. Let's just choose that and see what it would be like to experience this film, not knowing anything about anything up to that point. It would be fascinating. And the 65, 70-year-old guy is proof positive that it doesn't. I mean, you're probably thinking this guy's, what's he doing here?
I'm thinking he's a horn dog is what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
but
right. No,
whatever.
Trust me, I thought, oh, well, maybe he's just like, he's trying to impress some woman with his artistic take on the world. And he's trying to see Emma Stone doing her sex scenes, whatever it may be. But he turns and he's seen it three times. I mean, that says a lot. That says a lot about a person and their artistic need to be fulfilled. So I find that fascinating. I think the only thing I would say, I've got nothing bad to say about this film, but I do want to start out with the fact that I am a little, by the way, I keep hearing Yorgos, not Yorgos. So I keep hearing Yorgos, and I finally found out, as we've talked about, it's Barry Keoghan, and it's Paul Mescal, not Mescal, Mescal. All right. So if you hear me say Yorgos, it's because I'm trying to initiate that into account. But it's so much easier to say Yorgos Lanthimos. It's so much easier to say than Yorgos Lanthimos. See, it doesn't. So you'll probably hear me say both. That said, I hope whatever he does next is good for him, that he's putting his money where his mouth is. This is exactly where I expected a director who directed Dogtooth to be at 15 years down the line, and in Hollywood, becoming a mainstream director, although he's not. It just happens to be he's working with a lot of people that we now know their names, but that's what happens.
I don't know. I don't think this got a lot of I don't think this was. I think this was more of an independent film. I know Emma Stone was a producer on it, but I don't know what the.
Yeah, not necessarily talking about a studio system. Gotcha. I'm talking about the idea that people now know the movie The Favorite. They don't, but they do. They've seen it.
He's getting to the point, and maybe after The Favorite in this movie, maybe he's now to the point where you go to see the movie because it's a Yorgos Lanthimos film, not because it has Emma Stone in it, not because it's written by this guy, not because but it's like you're there because of the filmmaker, because of the director.
Right. But I also think that, yes, but there are people like you and I and that gentleman in your movie screening that went to see it because it is a Yorgos Lanthimos film, not because of Emma Stone per se. I mean, at least not me.
He went to see it because it was an Emma Stone film. But I get what you're saying. Yeah.
What? You don't know.
He said that. She came up in the pre, because it was Alamo Drafthouse and they were like doing a whole thing on Emma Stone, and she came up on screen. She's like, "There's my girl," and I'm like, "Dude,
yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. That could be something else. Okay, it doesn't matter.
Hey. Horn dog be horn dogging. Right? I don't, whatever.
It could be he's simply fascinated with her as an actress. Anyway, I'm trying to save this guy. The point is that I do believe that Yorgos Lanthimos has a fingerprint, obviously. And he's doing that fisheye lens thing, and he's doing that dance thing in this like he did in The Favorite, which I'm fine with, but he's got one more time with that. He's got one more motif making pattern with that. He can do that dance in one more movie. He can use the fisheye lens in one more movie. And then he has to stop, slow down, and figure out how to bring it back to the simplicity of Dogtooth or the simplicity of the Lobster, because the Lobster is not, it's fantastical in ideas and narrative, but it's not really that fantastical. Neither is The Favorite, but there is a oddball comedy, almost slapstick thing going on with Poor Things and The Favorite that I just think he needs to slow down just a little bit, and the next film make it about two people on a road trip.
Yeah, I mean, The Favorite has that juxtaposition of the opulence and that oddball. This doesn't fit here. Like that'll get it far. Which
Sort
it
of
did.
describes Poor Things too.
Yeah, but Poor Things, I think that Poor Things is kind of saying like we're gonna take you into a painting that is not realistic. We'll tell you right off the bat it's not realistic because number one, it's in black and white. Number two, we're using fisheye lenses, and we're gonna take you through this progression of the expansion of the mind and the maturity of the Bella Baxter character. So as she's maturing, we're going to change how we show her on film. As she has her sexual awakening, she's going to go from black and white to color, and that corresponds to Lisbon, and that corresponds to, all these crazy colors in the sky. And then, as she gets into the realism of the real world and that things aren't just, happy, pretty rainbows, and you hit Alexandria, which is this like dark, whatever it is, it's this like clay, orangey, just emanating this single color, ominous color in Alexandria. Like, so they're utilizing the surroundings to get you into the character, which is good. It's not for no reason. I think that the benefit of that is that he's utilizing all those tools, and he's able to do it in a different way than a movie like Dogtooth was, where Dogtooth was oppressive because you were trapped in this one location that we know where all of the things are. Like, it's just this one house. Like, we're trapped with these people and we can't get away. This is like we're expanding and expanding and we're changing, and I think that is different. That is refreshing, and that is and like I said earlier, he's utilizing different tools. So for me, this showed a marked difference between this movie and his other movies. So the dancing part didn't really bother me, and the fisheye lenses, it was hard to tell. Like, it seemed like he was using those in scenes where there was a lot of confusion or a lot of kind of like concern, whether it was her going to tell her dad, or whatever you call him, Godwin, her going to tell Godwin that, that she thought she understood something and she didn't, or that she found out that he was going to, prevent her from leaving. And then, all of these things that are concerns for her, like, they're showing that to us by changing the way that we're seeing her character and other characters. So
I have full faith in everything that he does as a director and a filmmaker, no doubt about it. And he could turn out to be, well, he is turning out to be on some level exactly like Tarantino. They both have a very specific thumbprint. And after about 3 or 4 films, you have to say, what else do you have? And I'm saying that for this director, Yorgos Lanthimos, I would like to see what he can do without the convenience of those tricks. Even though I don't think they're tricks. I don't think he's tricking us. I think they are for specific reasons. I mean, in The Favorite, he uses the fisheye lens for when he's doing like long corridor shots and long hallway shots. And, well, corridor, hallway, same thing. And different ideas of space and the person being this big and the rest of everything else being this big. It puts things into perspective, and it also gives you an emotional resonance that you wouldn't have if he didn't do that. And I'm just saying, I hope he doesn't rely on that for all of his projects. I think it works in this film, no doubt about it, but it would be interesting to see. I hope it doesn't become a pattern with him to where he relies on that idea to get his point across again and again and again.
Yeah.
Because it almost becomes like a magic trick. You're almost starting to watch the fisheye instead of feeling what you're feeling, instead of seeing what you're seeing, you're going, oh, that guy's using the fisheye lens again. You know, it's not anything that's even in my language of knowledge that I would even notice things like that, but it's pointed out to me. And then with somebody like you who understands that kind of stuff, we talk about that stuff. So I understand it a little bit more than 20 years ago, but I don't want it to become a trick. I don't want it to become a signature move for him. That said, some of my favorite directors do it. Spike Lee does it all the time. He has his tricks.
Well,
so,
and I was going to bring up the slow-mo zoom in of a character walking towards the camera while Rolling Stones or other classic rock song is playing for Martin Scorsese.
Scorsese, I knew you were going there.
So, I mean, like,
as soon as you said the first syllables, I was like, he's going to Scorsese.
The crazy part is that he's been making movies for 50 years. So he has a much larger catalog, so that when you say like, oh, he just did that in another movie, it's like, yeah, but he's only done it in like 10% of his movies or whatever it is, 25% of his movies.
Let me clarify my point. I hope it is always for purpose.
Yeah.
Not for shtick.
Not a crutch. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's for purpose in this film. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Hands down.
Yeah. Well, the cool part about the lenses actually is I was reading some stuff about the cinematography. It was about Robbie Ryan, and he was doing an interview, and he said that they decided on essentially 4 or 5 lenses, which is this very small amount of lenses, because you will usually do fixed focus lenses where like they don't zoom. So number one, they used these 4 different lenses, one of which is the 4mm fisheye lens, so the extreme fisheye, and then they utilize those lenses like in weird ways. Like they would use a 16mm lens on a 35mm camera, and what that ends up doing is it lets less light onto the film, so you get this like vignetting, like this like kind of black edges of the frame are blacker on the corners, and so that's another specific look. But it did a lot of things for them. It allowed them to shoot faster, and then it also eliminated the extreme choice that they could have. You know, by limiting yourself, you're kind of like hamstringing yourself in a certain way, but at the same time, you're making yourself come up with unique and different solutions for a particular problem, whether it's, oh, we can't get this camera here or whatever it is. So it is interesting that you're saying that, because they are kind of like making real choices that do limit their capabilities in certain ways. I think shooting on sets in a lot of ways may limit your I mean, sets are beautiful, but and they're huge. I mean, shoot, that Lisbon set was insane. None of the Lisbon stuff was outside. That just boggled my mind. They had like a full like water tank with a bunch of, you know, water. Like when they were looking out over the water, they were looking out over real water. It was just inside. So you could completely control the light, and you can have crazy lighting. You can have amazing camera shots, and you can have extreme buildings that would never exist in our real world, but fit into what you may think someone who's never been outside of her home and experiencing this world for the first time. Like that's another way to do it. So, I mean, they are in a lot of ways are very opulent in this film, but at the same time are limiting themselves in certain ways. So I don't know. I loved it.
Well, it works. It adds to the humor of the film. It adds to the emotional strengths of the film. It totally adds to it. I just, as I was driving home from the movie, thought to myself, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and if this is what he's choosing to do, so be it. I will ride that ride forever. Every time he makes a film, I'll be there. But I just think he's got more in him, or he's able to use less of what he wants to get his point across. And I think now everybody is saying yes to him, which they should. You know, I want to make this movie about this, blah, 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 blah. I need this amount of money, blah, 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 blah. Yes. Okay. Sure. You surprisingly won Olivia Colman an Oscar. Sure.
Yeah.
You're who? Oh, that guy. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Because, I mean, people know who he is.
Of course.
Anyway, so, just a point, just something that came into my mind.
Yeah. What about the use like of the background characters or the supporting characters, I guess? I thought it was interesting that he used Rami Youssef and Gerard Carmichael in some pretty important roles. I mean, they were not big roles, but they were important roles. And both of those guys are comedians. So I thought that was it. This is a comedy. It is. But having those guys essentially playing the straight man in these scenarios, like with Emma Stone, it was an interesting choice. And we see it happen sometimes with other comedians, but like these guys didn't necessarily have punchlines. They were kind of like backboards for her to bounce off of to get to the goal of what she was trying to get to. Whether it's Rami Youssef, he played the assistant, I guess, allowing her to be the person that she is, and also falling in love with her, and her kind of maybe seeing that but not knowing what that is before she leaves for Lisbon, and then Gerard Carmichael kind of being that the nihilistic and limiting factor, and just kind of a slap of realism upside her head, and the kind of like loss of innocence that she has. It's interesting because she goes to Lisbon, she has a sexual awakening, but she doesn't have that loss of innocence until she gets on the boat. And then that's kind of the next element in her growth as a human. And so there's that interesting period of time in there where she's able to inspect human interactions as a third-party observer. We're so used to, we're one of the only real species that can think about themselves and how they do things and inspect it as close as we can from an external point of view. But she's able to do it really from an external point of view because she's being treated like an adult, but she's not experienced the things that got her to where an adult of her age would be. So she asks all the questions, where the annoying kid questions of like, well, why do we do it that way? Or why don't you do this? Or, and we never, and you just say like, well, just because. Don't say that the food tastes bad. Don't spit out the food. That's not nice. She's like, well, but I'm not going to eat it, And so, or whatever that line is, when there's something in my mouth and I don't like it, I spit it out.
Revolting. Yeah.
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 So
why would I eat that if it's revolting? I think is what she says.
So that, it's refreshing to be able to see that and to be able to, kind of say like, okay, maybe let's spend these 2.5 hours thinking about like why people do what they do, or why as a society we do what we do, and all of that. I mean, it's a nice, it's a exit from reality, but she does kind of come back to reality, or comes to reality close to the end.
Well, I'm not so sure that she ever loses her innocence per se. I know what you meant by saying that, but I think that we as an audience member and we as the world around Bella are learning more from her than she is from us, because she is kind of right. Why would you eat something that doesn't taste good just because it's polite? Why would you not say something? And she does say, I'm going to go punch that baby in the face. Yes. That is a little messed up. Sure. It's funny though. That comic timing and that whole sequence is great. Emma Stone, man. Whew. So no, you can't go over and punch a baby in its face because it's irritating you. No, you can't just spit your food out. But why do we have these conventions in this world where you can't politely say no thank you to something that you won't like? Or,
Jared Leto's the Joker has the answer.
Excuse me. I don't even know where you're going with this, but I'm a little afraid. What does he say?
We live in a society. So
yes,
that's why you can't punch a baby.
Yeah,
because
there's a lot of reasons why you can't.
You have to have respect for other people,
right?
I mean, that's baseline.
But I think the point to the exaggeration of both of those scenarios is to say to, and in particular to women, how we box them in and how we say, hey, you can have your wings, but we're going to clip them so you can stay here. Or no, you can't do this because you're the weaker sex. Or no, you can't do this because you're too emotional. No, you can't do this because of that. Whatever it may be, that we trap women in these, pigeonhole them into these images that we have. And in particular, men who like women have these images and pigeonhole women into these images which is a side note that I'll talk about later on with the screenplay. But no, of course, because we live in a society, you can't punch a baby and you can't spit your food out. But the point is not about spitting food out or punching a baby. I just want to say that again and again. It's about constraint and holding on to what other people think we should be versus who we really are and how we really want to act. Because the same people who are saying, don't do that, don't spit your food out, are like, oh, I don't want to eat that, that's disgusting. But they swallow it politely and they do it anyway because some strange societal rule is telling you to do that. That's just the exaggerated example of what Bella is being told she can and cannot do. And she's like, why? That doesn't make any sense to me, why I can't do these things. Yes, we live in a society, but I think it's more about those trappings and those holding on to what we think women should do. And it's just one of those exaggerated examples of that.
Well, and the Christopher Abbott character just hits the nail on the head. You know, that writing is not subtle. It's just, you know.
He's the worst.
Yeah, I want to own you.
Yeah.
That's what he says.
Which is basically what everybody tries to do throughout the whole entire film.
Sure, yes. But Willem Dafoe starts off from a bad premise. You know, he looks at it like a science experiment, you know, just like any other science, like, you know, like the chicken pig, and you know, that's just another chicken pig.
But God had let her out if Mark Ruffalo's character hadn't come in. He was still trying to hold her back, and then Mark Ruffalo's like, "Can she come with me?"
Yep.
And of course, man to man, they're like, "Yeah, of course she'll be okay because she'll be with a man," and that's an interesting trope that we use over and over again for women in film.
Yes.
Not necessarily a good thing.
No. I mean, yes, you're right. So, yes.
Just keep telling Paul yes.
I'm just trying to figure out like what switch flipped. So the switch that flipped was, I never thought that she, you know, would want to leave. Number one, did he think that before? Or when she does think she wants to leave, he feels better about her leaving. I think he feels like it's necessary for her to leave because he's holding on too tight to her. Then that she's at that point of development. You know, it's like empty nest, you know, that kind of a thing. But maybe I'm giving Willem Dafoe too much credit. She does come back to him at the end and she's like, you were a huge freaking jerk and there's something that's pulling me back. And
it's the science, it's the medicine that's pulling her back. It's the idea of being a surgeon or whatever she intends to do, because she says this is the only place I feel happy. She says that later on. Okay, so the question is, does she try to leave before Mark Ruffalo's character shows up? Duncan Wedderburn.
Wedderburn.
Wedderburn. Wedderburn. Duncan.
Wedderburn. I don't think she does. I don't think she knows.
Does she pose any questions like, what's out there? What's out?
It doesn't seem like
let's go to the front door.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like she thinks. Was she on the roof before he comes up there? I can't remember if she got up on the roof.
Yeah, because she shows him.
No. She tells him to go up to the roof, but I think there is a scene where she goes up to the roof before. Because Rami Youssef goes up to the roof with her. Yeah. And they do go outside. I think that they go outside. Yeah, they're playing outside. Her, Rami Youssef, and Willem Dafoe. Like, and she's like all, you know, in the leaves and stuff.
Right, but that's like their yard and stuff like that.
No, they went in like a. Remember they had
you're right.
The horse carriage that was a horse head and then a carriage.
But then that's a perfect example. I think we've gone too far. Let's turn around.
Yep.
And she's like, no, let's not. And so he does allow her, and it's interesting because he's in a horse-drawn. Well,
he's in a car.
It's not.
But
he's in a car, right? He's in a steam engine with a horse. That's hilarious when that comes out. By the way, that's so funny. That's so funny. I laughed out loud, and people are like looking at me like, "What's so funny about that?" And I'm like, "I
just look at it.
Funny.
Yeah,
it's funny that's like that guy. That's like the Dick Van Dyke character in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, who's always like, just crack the egg open and fry the egg. You don't have to go through this mousetrap of things to do to get the egg to crack open. That's why it's funny.
You can draw a parallel between like what we were talking about earlier, though. Like it's the like, oh look, we're just like everybody else. We have a horse drawn carriage.
Or let's try to make ourselves look like we're everybody else.
Exactly. We're trying to pass as a regular
smarter
horse-drawn
because we're
carriage.
using a steam engine car.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the point was that, it's still a horse-drawn carriage.
Sure.
And there are reins and somebody's controlling it, although it's a steering wheel, which is hysterical. But he's trying to rein her in that whole entire scene. He's trying to be like, no, he doesn't want to go out originally. He doesn't want to blah, blah, blah. He doesn't want to look out the window.
He doesn't want to go out because he's not ashamed. He doesn't want to go out because he knows that people are mean and they will make fun of him. That's why he doesn't want to go out, not because he doesn't want Bella to go out there. He says it. He says as much. I'm not here to defend Willem Dafoe's choices in this movie. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not like,
I'm not saying
Godwin for president. I'm not. No, he's messed up dude.
And there would be nothing wrong with you defending how you saw a character in a movie, how the character presented to you is defendable. That's okay.
Well,
you're not saying that him controlling a woman for his own needs is a good thing. You're not like, yay, down with women's rights. That's not what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're saying that by what you saw on screen and by the screenplay, your interpretation of what his character did was this. And that's just proof that you're a good person because you're trying to see the good in everybody. But there's a point, I have to see it again. It's been a couple weeks since I've seen it, and I do want to see it again. But it's the
I got a
race
guy
now.
you can go with. He's probably up for a fourth.
Can I turn to him and say, I'm here for Mark Ruffalo, bud?
Jeez.
Can you imagine? That'd be hilarious. Nowadays, people wouldn't flinch. He'd probably be like, yeah, I get it. Not my thing, but good for you. He's a hottie. So the whole point to that is that there are men, and in this film, they're men, and that is a point that are trying to control this woman, this girl, this young female, then this woman, so forth and so on. And all she wants to do is explore and see the world. And yes, I believe that you're right. His fear of how he looks to the outside world is not why he doesn't want to go out. He doesn't want Bella to feel that pain that he felt by people ostracizing him and thinking he's a monster. Thus, her crazy naivete and her spitting food out and slapping babies is not going to bode well for convention of society, the conventions of society.
Quote unquote protecting her.
Right, which is a trope.
Yep. Well, just
Which is a
like
trope.
Christopher Abbott wanted to protect her and keep her
I
to
love him.
himself.
And I'm mad at him now. I'm like, why did you take this part in this movie? You have changed my mind about you.
Oh,
I
man.
hate you now. No, I'm just kidding. But he is a terrible, from the moment he takes the screen, you're like, that guy's not good. And I love that actor. I think he's great. And he did his job, obviously. And he gets his due. And they make a big point about it because obviously they have to. Because of the whole heads being swapped and bodies being swapped and brains being swapped. It has to come to that at the end because that's what that character deserves in the film, not from my opinion. In the film, that's what the character deserves. The point though is that there's one trope after the next. And I think this is going to sound like a criticism because I guess it is. These men who are writing films about women, although this film is extremely well written and has very much feminist overtones and she says it herself. Well, why can't the woman choose? She says that when she's working in the brothel. But the trope of her becoming a prostitute is just that. It's a trope. The only way a woman can learn about herself sexually and learn about herself as an adult is to become a prostitute and sell her body. It's been done over and over and over and over again. And I wonder if this is not an indictment of anybody who wrote this movie or anybody. I'm not saying they're sexist. I'm not saying anything like that. But I often wonder when I see movies where it's four men who wrote the film and the protagonist is a woman and they're making these big, bold statements about what this woman wants and needs. Did they consult the women in their life? Did they sit down and say, hey, I don't know if Yorgos is married to a man or a woman or what. I don't even know if he's married. But if he is married to a woman or if he is dating a woman, does he turn to her and say, hey, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? I'm not saying they didn't do that. I just find it very interesting that the writer of the book is a guy, the writer of the screenplay is a guy, the director of the screenplay is a guy. Now, that said, they picked the right female actress to take on the part so she can go, stop. I don't care who wrote it. Here's the point. The point is this. This is the theme. Stop trying to control women. And this is how I'm going to show you to stop controlling women. I don't know if that's the point of the movie. I don't know if that's what I took from it. I don't know if that's what they were trying to get across. But there are certain tropes that keep repeating themselves in movies about women and coming of age. Because I wrote down, this is a fairy tale. It's a nightmare. It's a coming of age story. It's a lot of things. It's it could be considered a fable, although the animals don't talk. Anyway, the point is, I wonder sometimes, are men trying to get it right by writing these type of movies? Are they trying to understand women better? Is a man capable of writing a film like this and making the points that a woman might make, or making a point that a woman might want to see? I don't know if it's their responsibility. I don't know if it's any of that, but it did strike me odd for a brief second that this is a bunch of guys telling a story about a coming of age story about a woman who has a sexual revolution and so forth and so on. And she also has to become a prostitute, because we've talked about themes before. And I'll end with this. The Whore with a Heart of Gold is an often told story. It's just always used. There are always all of those things. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy, boy loses girl, boy finds girl again. We've seen it all the time. It's the themes of most screenplays, theater, so forth and so on. But I sometimes wonder, you watch these movies and then 10 years later, you hear all of these analysis about, well, this is a trope because men think this, or this is a idea because men think this. I don't really have a point. I just wanted to mention that I was aware of it, and that I hope I'm seeing it for what I hope I'm learning about a woman's experience by watching a film like this on top of everything else that the film's doing.
Yeah,
Get me out of it.
Well, I think there's a couple things. Number one, like if this movie was made in 1988, it would be working girl, and she'd be able to rise up in a big company and succeed. But it was made in 1888, or something along there. So in Paris in the late 1800s, there's probably not a lot of like investment banks that she could just waltz into and become a partner. So there's that element. You're questioning that?
Well, because I just thought of 5 different things off the top of my head where she doesn't necessarily have to become a prostitute in order to make money to live.
Okay, well, with the experiences that she's had up to that point in life.
Okay, good point.
So yeah, I don't even know if she can write.
She could become a maid,
but sure,
housekeeper.
Yeah. You mean
Baker.
She could become a French maid? Is that what you're saying? So you're fetishizing her now?
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I knew you were going there. As soon as it came out, I was going to go with baker or pie maker. And then I thought, a woman's place is only in the kitchen. So you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't.
So you
I just want people to be aware that I'm aware.
Yeah, no.
But here's, and I know what you're getting at,
yeah.
But let me interject something, because I know I just talked a long time, but I do want to make this point. But we're not in 1889. We're in an imaginary fairy tale that's set in 1889. So the costumes are not traditional looking outfits from that day. She wears shorts for most of it until she becomes a woman and she starts wearing longer dresses, blah, 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 blah. You can't say, well, we're bending the rules of imagination here because we want to make a point about how she's still a very young person and she does things unconventionally. That's why she's wearing shorts instead of a long dress, whatever the reason why the costume designer made her wear shorts. You can't have it both ways. If it's about what she can be in 1889, then she can't be wearing shorts like that because they didn't wear shorts like that. So,
okay, well, so I think, I mean, I don't know anything about what women wore in the late 1800s, so I don't know. But I do think that her time at the brothel was one of the first times, or maybe the first time, that I saw that she was actually in control of not only like her ability to make money and support herself, but her ability to do the things that she wanted to do when she wanted to do them, whether she wanted to go to a socialist meeting with her friend or whether she wanted to, work for X number of hours and, make a bunch of money. She also was within those sessions, she was making rules. Oh, guys. Appointments. She was making suggestions and rules and limitations on those sessions that the guys were all about. So she had a certain amount of control within that room. Now, maybe as far as society was concerned, no, she did not have really control over her position in French society in the period of time that she was there. No, but she had a very small modicum of control. And so that is the first time that we see that. You also do see her reading. You see her, so you see her enriching her brain, and you see her, being purposeful about her time when she's there. So, I think that's a step forward in her evolution or in her enlightenment or whatever you want to call it. And that actually brings me to another point that I was thinking about, was that, is this kind of like a parallel or an allegory for women's enlightenment or women's struggle or something like that, where I'll be very careful here. I'm not saying that women before a certain period did not have the ability mentally to understand their position in society and enact change about that. But what I am saying is that you see someone who, by the end of the movie, take back control of her life and make decisions that benefit her and the people around her that she loves in a good way, even though she may not be doing things exactly the way that people down the street here in North Carolina would. But by the end of the movie, she has created a life, and a life that she seems to enjoy. So, and she's done that. She hasn't needed a man to do that for her. And even the men in her life, or the man in her life by the end, is not the one who is saying that, oh, I will allow you to do this. He's another part of that, but he's not the leader or the one that gives her allowance to be herself. So she has become a fully formed person, or a more formed person mentally, and to match up with her physical abilities and capabilities by the end of the movie. And so, I think hopefully we're closer to that than we were in 1889 or whatever.
Well, I think
in the United States, maybe.
As an observer of life, I think we are closer to that. But the fact that we're still equating it to what's happening nowadays is probably why this film resonates so well, and probably why the themes of the film come across so well, because there are struggles. Pay equality, the casting couch to encompass what women have to go through with abusive men, spiritually, sexually, financially, emotionally, you name it. So yes, and she chooses a profession, if that's what you want to call it, or a thing that lights her up, that she finds interesting, that is not common to somebody in 1889 in Paris, or a woman. So everything about what she does is unconventional, for lack of a better term. And I sent you a picture of what they dressed like in 1889 in Paris, by the way.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a woman in a dress,
okay.
And a corset and big old thing in the back, and it's sort of similar to what they're wearing, but I don't think they wore shorts like that. I'm pretty sure that's a stylistic choice. Just like in The Favorite, everything is black and white. Do you remember that? Everything in the Favorite is black and white. All the costumes. There's a little red here and there, but most everything is black and white. So yeah, I think it's all of that. And what I find interesting about our conversation is that we are tiptoeing around trying to be delicate about saying the right things. And that's a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. We talked about two guys watching the Barbie movie, but really we're just two film goers who wanted to see the Barbie movie. It's no different than two film goers going to see Oppenheimer or, anything else that's out there right now. That the holdovers, doesn't matter that you're male or female. It matters that you're a film goer and you want to see and experience this stuff. What I think people who make movies like this, at least what I take from movies like this, is that the question is the most important thing. You know, back to the quote, we thought we had the answers. It was the questions we had wrong. What are the questions that we should be asking ourselves about how we feel about this movie, what it does for us, how it reflects on our own life, how we treat other people, men, women, children, whatever. You know, do you want to punch a baby in the face when it's crying in a restaurant? Never. But there are questions that you pose to yourself, and that's the importance of a film, regardless of its protagonist being a female and having issues that are primarily female issues, driven by male-dominated society, whatever it may be. Where do I fall into that, and how do I feel about that? I felt her innocence, but I also felt her knowledge of just being alive was smarter than anybody in the room at the time, no matter how young she was, no matter what. I mean, there was, when she was infantile, asking, stabbing the guy in the eyes and stuff like that. That was just to say, you know, she's infantile at the time. But when she starts to grow and move on, she is really the smartest woman in the room. Like, and the scene that solidifies that for me is when she's on the boat and he takes the book and he tosses the book. And I was like, really, dude, that's the choice you're making?
Talk about being infantile.
I know, right? I was like, okay, we know it's 1889 or whatever, but have you not seen any movies? Don't act like that. Men are not supposed to act like that. Anyway, the elderly lady next to her just simply goes and gives her another book. And she looks at him like, you know, this is going to keep happening if you're throwing these books overboard, because she's going to keep giving them to me and I'm going to keep reading them. So you're going to have to make a different choice and stop. You know, you're not going to. And it's interesting that none of the choices that Mark Ruffalo's character makes are necessarily turnoffs to Bella. She wants to grow and learn irregardless of what he does. She would continue probably to be his travel partner and continue to explore sexually with him until she wants to own him, or he wants to own her.
Yeah. Until
that happens, you're mine. Yeah, and then this is why I can understand that a male can write a story about a female protagonist, because they do condemn themselves inside of it themselves, because it's inevitable that a guy in a movie falls in love with somebody like Emma Stone, or a beautiful woman like Emma Stone, and instead of saying, I want to own you, they do stupid stuff like throw books off of boats, and then they go, but I'm in love with you. Mm-hmm. That's not what they're saying. They're saying, I want to own you. I want to tell you what to do.
I don't want anybody else to have you.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So if that's what we got from this film, I think you and I are doing okay. Yeah. That we're doing okay as males in this society, trying to look past what people have been telling us is the way that it is and looking around it. So that's an awfully deep conversation for such a funny, humorous film, but the movie has those themes to it.
But that's why Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma Stone pick these subjects and they have an artifice, whatever that artifice is, but it allows us to have deeper conversations. So
absolutely,
that's the cool part. So I'm excited.
And it's also fun to see what other people laugh at in these movies, because they're not necessarily what I'm laughing at. And it's always like I'm laughing at something that, I don't know, I think I make people uncomfortable sometimes, because I don't think they understand why I'm laughing, and I think that that's funny. But some of the stuff was like really off-putting in a way that it was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, all the guys in the movie, all the men in the movie come across as just like, whether it's, you know, they just can't handle themselves around her. You know, it's just not compatible. I mean, Gerard Carmichael's a little different, because he's essentially indifferent to everybody, and he's just mean in some cases. But yeah,
and she's willing to let people learn and learn with people. But men, for whatever reason, in this film, they have a tendency to like, me want, me have, me take, I want. So let's because
hold on, we got to talk about Catherine Hunter, because I know you're a big Hunter head. So.
I like her. Well, that's when she came out in not the first scene, but the second scene when she's wearing the corset and the tattoos. I laughed out loud, and I didn't laugh at her. I laughed at the truth behind that statement, that she got tatted up, that she was trying to look traditionally beautiful and sexy, but yet she is not traditionally beautiful or sexy. Not that she's unattractive or anything, but she's not Emma Stone. And so I thought it was an interesting, not that one's better than the other.
Yeah.
Please don't let me dig a hole here.
That's a life. No, to me, that's a life. Like all those tattoos take time. It takes time to make each of those tattoos. So they're kind of like markers, or, you know, they're kind of
I
like,
thought of them as like a defense.
I don't know.
You can say that you don't think I'm traditionally the way that you think I should look. So I'm going to make myself look the way I want to look. And this is how I look on the inside, that I'm an artist and that I am designing myself. But yeah,
it's also an
right.
ownership of your own body. It's like saying
absolutely.
like, hey, you, whatever man you think you can own me, well, guess what? I own me, and I can put whatever ink on me wherever I want, whenever I want.
Right. And that's why I laughed. I didn't laugh at her. I didn't laugh at the idea of her or the way that she looked. I laughed at the fact that she wore it like a badge of honor, and that she's walking into the room and she's the coolest looking person in the room. No doubt about it. Yeah. Corset and everything. Yeah. And you're right. You're 100% right. The screenwriter gives character development to everybody. There's a reason why she does what she does as the madam of the brothel. There's a reason behind why she's doing it. That said, it is very it's tricky. It's tricky because it's 18, whatever it is. So they have to do what they have to do to survive. I get it. But yeah, so I love her. Mm-hmm. She should have been nominated for Macbeth.
I just wanted
What else do we need to say?
I just wanted you to have a little bit of time. It's okay.
Yeah, she's great. And for anybody who hasn't seen Macbeth, they should see it just for her.
The tragedy of Macbeth, yes.
Them.
Yeah, totally.
The Coen brothers version, or the Coen brother version.
That's correct.
Denzel Washington's
he's good.
Breathy, lose breath performance. Anyway, but I do want to take some time because I want to spend about a couple of minutes on what is your glitch with Mark Ruffalo in this. You just thought it was...
So the accent's horrible. I mean, it's a choice, and I think he knows the accent's horrible, and he's leaning into it, which is like, I mean, if you're gonna go for it, go for it.
But he also drops it and pulls it back up,
which is horrible.
But that's on purpose. It's to prove that he's putting on airs
so
and fake
he's
accent.
In England, but he's not British, even though his name's Wedderburn or whatever.
Burn. W-E-D-D-E-R-B-U-R-N.
And he's not British if he's Wedderburn.
He is the example of men. He is the example of manhood.
Like the facade of manhood?
Yes.
Okay. So the whole thing is a facade. Like
absolutely.
The accent, the choices. The only thing he has is money. That's it. He doesn't have a personality. Like he doesn't have... Like, he just doesn't have anything. So you're saying that they gave him a character that had nothing, and he tried to, like, put that on screen, I guess. Is that what?
Well, I don't know if that's what I meant to say, but
well,
no, I don't
know. Like,
think
what
so.
What does that character have? Like, other than, like,
doesn't he talk in the beginning about where he comes from and what's his education is?
I thought he was just there to, like, fill out some sort of contract or something for the wedding. Remember, like, there was going to be a wedding between Rami Youssef and Emma Stone, and he's there to, like, inspect this contract. I think he's a lawyer or something.
Oh, right.
And then he just kind of waltzes upstairs and is like, hey, who is this girl that they've got all this information about? And then they're trying to, like, protect, blah, blah, blah. Somebody else wants something. That means I want it. And then he goes upstairs and meets Emma Stone.
That's all you need to know.
So
what else about him do you need to know?
I don't know.
I think you're the polar opposite of me on so many levels. And I think the bolder, the better choice doesn't work for you as much as it does for me. It just, you're grounded in reality, even in farcical comedy, fairy tale, fever dream.
Moulin Rouge, speaking of turn of the century,
I love
French. I love that movie too. I love it.
You put a Kiss song and a U2 song and have Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor sing it together. What? What? I was shocked. I was like,
it's happening.
Yes. Well, in my mind,
Yeah.
when that elephant sequence happens and he talked about all you need is love. And I kept thinking in my head for a split second right before it, in the name of love, I was like, where's that? And then there it was. And then he turns and goes, I was made for, I was like, wait, what? What just happened? What? I will love this movie forever.
Okay.
Anyway, so Moulin Rouge, fantastical, not set in reality.
Exactly.
Baz Luhrmann film.
Huge swings. Like all of the performances, they are out there. Ziegler, the Jim Broadbent, like he is going for it. Everywhere. Even Toulouse-Lautrec, even John Leguizamo performs as Toulouse-Lautrec. I'm in. I love it. It's great. I'm there. Like, I'm not against bold choices, but maybe it's because all of them were similarly bold, and that's the world we're living in, and it seemed like Ruffalo was poking out.
You know what's missing from Ruffalo's performance, if you're using the example of all those people from Moulin Rouge? The vulnerable, sympathetic moment that you see Toulouse-Lautrec on the thing,
where he's
singing with the drink, and he's kind of, and also the show must go on, and Jim Broadbent is worried about Nicole Kidman later on when she's coughing up blood and so forth. The only time you ever have a vulnerable moment with Mark Ruffalo, he's acting like a child and give me what I want, and you're not doing what I want, you're mine, and I brought you, and da 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 da, and he throws a fit about not having money and blah 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 blah. So maybe that's why. I just thought, if it didn't seem out of context of the film, it didn't seem out of the style that they were going for, because Emma Stone swings very large and very wide and just connects and hits that ball, man. In any other year, she would be a shoo-in for her second Oscar. Definitely going to be nominated. And it might be a race coming closer to the end, but, I'm not going to jinx it with saying too much. We've already talked about it, and I've already made my predictions early on.
Okay.
I just want you to remember that, first of all.
It's recorded.
Straight down. That's what I tell everybody now. You did not say that. Yes, I did. It's recorded. Episode. And I'll tell them. Anyway, so I get what you're saying. I just think that what he did was hard to pull off, and I think he did it. Like, he has a tendency to... what's the line from Hamlet? Suit the word to the action to the word. He has a tendency to say the line and then do his action, or he pauses and then says the line, which is hysterical to me. I thought
it's essentially like somebody going, oh, just like, it's not.
He had to.
Nobody's ever done that in real life. The only people on stage
nobody's
have
ever
done
walked
that.
around in 1889 Paris streets in the shorts that were made out of material I don't think they even had back then.
You're right. Yeah.
So
it's like
a plastic and dance
coat.
like that.
Yeah. It's like, how do you have a plastic coat in 1892?
Why everybody else looks like how they're supposed to look like.
Yeah.
With the exception of the color palette, which is very pastel, which is unusual too. Although some of those pictures I think I try to send you contradict that. I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. But for me, I don't know, the buffoonery, the over-the-topness added to the dislike of the character and the sympathy for the character. There was a point in time where you're just like, he's a child. He never grew up. He's a child. Yeah. He's trying to teach her things, but he's a child.
He's less mature than she is. That's
right. And that does say something about how Yorgos or the screenwriter see men in this world, that men are infantile and childlike. And if they don't get exactly what they want to tear the playroom down. And I think he fit the bill. And I am not going to be surprised if he's nominated for the Oscar.
Hey, man, I've been wrong before. I still don't like Mad Max Fury Road. I'm like on an island of one.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, listen. Okay. I don't, you
can't fix what I got, man.
Listen, actually knowing that you don't like Mad Max Fury Road had me looking at it in a different way the second or third time I watched it. I was trying to see what it was that you might not possibly like about it. And I get it on some level, what didn't work for you. But that's exactly what worked for me. That's exactly I mean, listen, Oppenheimer is a gazillion billion dollar franchise that's winning every award. I'm not exactly in that camp.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly Oppenheimer. What was it that I said? I'm opting out of Oppenheimer, something like that. I said to a friend of mine in text, and he said, I was like, it's a juggernaut. It's going all the way down the line. It's probably going to win everything. And he goes, juggernaut, N-O-T. And I was like, but the point is that you have your different takes on things. That's fine. That's why it's interesting to have a conversation with you. For me, though, it's just, if Emma Stone was doing something different, or if Willem Dafoe was doing something different, because Rami Youssef, he kind of is a straight guy in this. There's a few kind of moments, just a few, but they're more about character than about over-the-top choice. Yeah. So, I mean, now that you mention it, I see where you're coming from. But let's stop that conversation because
don't think about it too much.
Next time I watch it, because you do make a good point. You make a good point. What is he there for? Why is he there? What does he want? Where does he come from? Okay, I get it. Totally get it. It matters not when Emma Stone is doing everything that she's doing in this film.
Yeah.
It is a tour de force. It is the definition of a tour de force performance. It is so utterly over the top and out there, but yet hunkered down in such real emotion that I don't think anybody anywhere else at any time could have pulled this off like she does. And imagine it. Imagine getting that script. Nobody knows. Nobody understands. You're reading it for the first time. That language, that specific language, not only the younger language that she has to speak because she doesn't know as many things because she's younger, but then even later on, she speaks in a heightened, almost Shakespearean kind of way. It's kind of poetic. She does that kind of Yoda thing where she speaks backwards and forwards all at the same time, but yet she pulls it off. The idea of that written on a page and then her bringing what she brings to it. And I do want to say this, and I will end my Emma Stone love fest with this. I saw somebody throwing shade at her, read somebody throwing shade at her online because they were giving her a hard time that she did everything that she did in the film just because she wanted to be award worthy, that she made these. Look at what you have to do to get an award nowadays. Well, first of all, that says more about your psyche, about what you think she did, because the sexuality in the film is not as crazy as I thought it was going to be. I thought it actually could have been way more over the top. It wasn't as crazy as I thought it would be. They made it out to be like this was going to be soft porn on some level. It's not. It's no more explicit than anything else anywhere. It's actually pretty tame compared to a lot of things that we have nowadays.
There's probably HBO shows that are way worse than that,
by far way worse than that. I just watched, not worst, I'm just saying explicit.
More explicit,
I just watched Fellow Travelers, the Showtime show. Matt Boomer, or Bomer, and Jonathan Bailey. He's on that big show. I can't think of it now. People are going to hate me for not knowing.
Yellowstone. I don't know.
No.
That's a big show, wasn't it? Oh, no, it's over now. See, I don't watch all the big shows. I don't watch.
Bridgerton.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, which I haven't gotten around to. So anyway, that is explicit sex scenes in a film for a purpose, and it's about time we got around to some good sex scenes with guys in films where they are doing it properly, and they, no pun intended, I mean filming it realistically and making it look like what it looks like in real life to a degree. Obviously, you can't go so far. So anyway, the point is that what she does in this film sexually is nothing. It's nothing. I mean, but as soon as that discussion became a thread, I was thinking to myself, wait a second. So you're thinking that she did this movie where she's subjected to men's abuse and men's wants and men's needs and sexually and all this other stuff. You're missing the actual point of the film, in my opinion, by stating that. And also, she did none of this stuff and won an Oscar for La La Land. None of it. I don't even think she cusses in that movie. Okay?
Not, yeah.
She did none of that and won the Oscar. She did none of that in The Favorite. Oh, by the way, she does none of that in any of the other films that she was nominated for the Oscar for. So you can't pin on the mantle that she purposely chose this because this was going to get her down the road to winning a second Oscar. It's void of nuance in a conversation.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out. I think it's a brave, bold, extremely hard performance to pull off. The timing, the language, the cadence, the whole rhythm to the way she learns to walk, starts to walk, ends up walking. Everything about it, the way she even holds books later on in the film is different than later on. The way she holds her neck and the way she holds her whole upper body at the end of the film is completely in the beginning. So as an actor, it's fascinating to watch what she did. And I think people will be talking about it for decades to come, that this performance was stunning. And if it surprisingly wins the Oscar, I don't think anybody can argue it. Anybody could discuss, well, no, she didn't really deserve it. She does. It's almost impossible to have pulled off what she pulled off, and she does it brilliantly.
All right. Well, I can't add anything more to that because, it's a lot of respect to her. She took this on and made it hers, and it's better for it. So, all right. You got anything else?
Nope.
All right. You can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. And you can find us on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast. And we'll see you next time.